Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Sorry about this is just being dodgy AF today. StreamYard is not behaving. It's not playing well with others. It was a little bit dodgy before I did my stream earlier today, my whiskey tasting stream, and then it's kind of doing the same thing now. But we're good. It just kind of gets a little bit of a choppy start once you connect, and then it seems like it's good to go. But how are you here? It is now Monday. And as usual, that means it's Maritime Monday, where we're going to be talking about some maritime accidents. And let me just bring my earphones down here quite a bit. I am way deafening myself. All right, there we go. That's better. Well, how are we? There looks like there was a little bit of excitement going on before I signed on here. We have Flux. Welcome, Flux, starting us out with the first super chat of the day. Thank you so much. Pants are prison. Hashtag pants are prison. Prison starting the week off right. I love my morning talk show. Who doesn't want to start the week out with death and destruction of big boats? We need to see the USS Annapolis. Yeah, that can definitely be done. We're going to be doing this today as well. And for those of you that are aware, let me tell you what we're going to be doing the rest of this week. Today's a holiday here in Korea, so I got to do a stream, My Morning Time, which was just whiskey tasting, just how to taste whiskey, and we tasted some Elijah Craig bourbon. Tonight, we're doing the Maritime Monday. We're doing the Steamboat Sultana, which is the single largest maritime accident in United States history to this very day. And it's an older accident, too. So tomorrow's Tuesday, we will be doing a trial update of the Taylor Schabusiness murder trial and the recent civil trial involving Nirvana and their Nevermind album cover. And then Wednesday will be a fun night. Don't miss Wednesday. Wednesday, we are talking about some bad men who are just way cool. They're Australians. We're going to be talking about some Aussies on Wednesday. So all of you Aussie people will know who I'm talking about instantly. We will be talking about two bad guys that are essentially folk heroes. If any of you are familiar with the Killdozer guy, or the guy that sort of built himself an armored tank and drove it around the city, we're going to be talking about the Australian version. We're going to be talking about Aussie man Killdozer guy. But this guy was a bigger badass than Killdozer guy. This badass, Ned Kelly, he built himself essentially an Iron Man suit and went around and robbed banks. So that'll be a fun case. And then one of my personal heroes, he's a bad guy, but he's still a hero. He's admitted to killing 4 people. He's done lots and lots of really, really horrible, torturous things to people. But according to him, yes, they will be. He was more of the Robin Hood type. He only hurt the bad people. So he was kind of the Dexter sort of guy, I guess you could call him. We'll be talking about Chopper Reed. So all of you Aussies will know Chopper Reed. Chopper Reed just died a few years ago. He was a bad guy, did a lot of bad things, but the bad things he did to bad people. So we'll talk about him. So so you'll be able to have fun. Aussies here in chat will be able to tell you that these two guys, Kelly and Chopper Reed, are some badasses. But not just me. I just won't be talking about them. We will be, Night Owl, Uncle Chop Chop, he's going to be on. Chop is a classic. We will be, Corn Pop was a bad dude. But yeah, we will be talking about Uncle Chop Chop and Kelly, Ned Kelly. But I will be doing it with 3 guests. If everything goes according to schedule, we'll be having on the Law Patrol. He will be here. We will be having on Meme Copium, who will also be here. And we'll be having an extra surprise guest, if it all goes well. Should I keep it? Should I keep it a secret? We'll just announce it now. We'll be having on Law Patrol, be having on Meme Copium, and if everything goes well, we will be having Madcore Mofo on as well. So that'll be the Aussie lineup on Wednesday. So keep that in mind. Alan Tempest Chopper, check. Yep, with a bank of 3 Aussies. So it should be fun. We'll be doing that on Wednesday. Tuesday's a catch-up with Taylor Shaw Business and Nirvana. Wednesday is this Aussie Chopper Reed, Iron Man, Kelly stream. Thursday will be the beginning of the defense of O.J. Simpson. We'll be having the opening statements by his lawyers. That'll be fun. And then Friday, not sure what's going on. It depends. If Fair and Balanced is going to be on my show, then we'll be doing that on my Friday night. But if I'm going to be on her channel, on her Friday night, then I will be doing my own thing, and then doing her thing as well. So I have to get with Farron and see if I'm going to be doing my own show on Friday or if she's going to be joining me here or what. So that's kind of the week in advance. Thanks for being here. We've got our 100 viewers, where I always like to start the show. John Burns says, my university was at Old Melbourne Jail where Ned Kelly died. Cool. Yeah, so again, you can see that the Aussies here, we're talking about some really bad guys who did some really bad things, but they reached folk hero status. They were good peeps. I mean, there's a comedian. We'll see. So we'll watch one or two of the skits. There's even a comedian that sort of he would do skits impersonating Chopper Reed, which are funny as hell. It's kind of like the old West cowboy days, you know, or the bad guys, the bank robbers. They just kind of became the old folk heroes. So, all right. Let's see. What do we got going here? Karina, welcome to being our newest of new members. Thank you so much for joining. That is quite awesome of you. All right, we are going to jump into this. It's a pretty short day today. This is a pretty short video. Again, we're going to the videos of Brick and Mortar because he just does a damn good job of putting together videos. And I've sent him an email, like we talked about last week. I've sent him an email asking him if he wants to come and join one of the Maritime Monday streams and sort of go through a video with us. So maybe he can tell us more about stuff that's not in the video, and so we can go through and watch it together. So that I haven't heard back from him yet, but as soon as I do, I'll let you know what's going on. Flux, I just bought a hat with Killdozer on it. Excited to wear that one. Oh, cool. All right. Shoot. Okay. Righto. I don't even know I don't know how to segue into this one. This is a bad one. This is a very good a very bad no good really, really, really bad story here. It's a Mississippi River steamboat just after the end of the Civil War. That's how old this is, and it's still the worst maritime disaster in the U.S. history. So let's bring up the window, and we'll just start Meme Copium here. Not Meme Copium, damn it. Brick and Mortar. And the link to Brick and Mortar site and the original of this video is down below if you want to check it out without all of my talking over it and starting and stopping that I do. All righty. Nightmare on the Mississippi. The tragedy of the Steamboat Sultana.
In 1865, when the Steamboat Sultana departed Vicksburg on its journey north along the Mississippi River, the unsuspecting 2,300 souls aboard would soon be caught in a nightmare of events.
That right there is the start of the problem. This is the Sultana before it departed with 2,300 people on board. That's a steamboat with 2,300 people on it. What could possibly go wrong?
The unsuspecting 2,300 souls aboard would soon be caught in a nightmare of events, the likes of which, to this day, remain the deadliest maritime disaster in United States history. It was spring of 1865, which meant the American Civil War, having persisted for 4 years by this point, was coming to an end. However, for Union soldiers held prisoner at one of the most notoriously cruel Confederate-run POW camps, Andersonville Prison, also known as Camp Sumter, near Macon, Georgia, with inadequate medical care, housing, clothing, food, combined with terrible, overcrowded conditions, prisoner mortality rates were unfathomable at Andersonville, numbering 12,000 plus by historical record. The end of hostilities officially would mean little until the surviving prisoners' freedom was actually granted. Somewhat conversely, at Cahaba, the Confederate-run POW camp near Selma, Alabama, conditions were slightly more survivable, with populations much lower and one of the lowest mortality rates of POW camps at the time. Union soldiers, however, still weary from battle and their time being imprisoned, were nonetheless anxious to see their suffering end and return home just the same. The American Civil War of the 18th.
Now, this one has a bit more history before we get into the maritime side of it, but it's kind of necessary because it's setting the site here.
60s, having been waged between two sides divided by their beliefs, meant the country was just as divided physically. At the time, the United States was essentially split in two, and these Union prisoners of war, being held deep in recently former enemy territory in the South, they were a long way from their homes and families in states like Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana. As the war concluded and the time drew closer for these prison camps to relinquish their populations, the logistics of transporting so many weary soldiers across such a great distance safely would pose somewhat of a challenge to the United States government.
Yeah, so Crystal, oh, by the way, hey, welcome to the mods. I forgot to do that. Shame on me. Welcome, mods. Great to see so many of you here today doing your moddy thing. Crystal, one of our mods, said the ship is way too people-y for me. As you can see, as were the trains. Yeah, you just had a lot of people to transport from one point to another. And as you said, you transport them from their prison camps in the South through the South back up to the North safely. Well, supposedly safely.
Originally constructed in Cincinnati, Ohio, at Litherbury Shipyard, and launched in January of 1863 onto the Ohio River, the Sultana was a prime example of the side-wheel steamboat. While the stern wheelers at times seeming much more prevalent in media, and several are still in use today as tourist attractions, the side wheelers, however, with one paddle on either side of the boat, giving it a wider beam than stern paddle wheelers, provided more maneuverability inherent with its design. Each paddle could operate at differing speeds, and some with clutches could turn independently of one another, and even in opposite directions. This maneuverability was crucial in the time period. Rivers posed many more difficulties in navigation owing to their still natural, meandering channels, unpredictability in depth, along with frequent flooding and debris. And with steam-powered boats and ships being prolific at the time, side-wheelers were utilized heavily in both industrial and military applications. In the Sultana's case, a width or beam of 42 feet, 260 feet in length, and weighing in at 1,719 tons, the boat was larger than the average class of river steamboat. 4 decks, a crew of 85, a capacity of 376 passengers.
Do we see a problem there? Yeah, raise your hand when you see that problem. A capacity of 376. And they had 2,300 on there at the time of the accident. Yeah. 2,300 people on there. So essentially, like 7 times more than should have been on there. Again, while I'm paused here and thinking about it, welcome to the chat, everybody. This is what we do on Mondays. We do Maritime Mondays. We look at maritime accidents and disasters, and we sort of look at it from a legal perspective. Why? Because that's what I do. A huge part of my job is working on maritime cases. And hit that like button, please, if you haven't done so. There's 138 of you and 86 likes, so hit that like button. Just go down there and click it while I'm talking. I'm not going to stop talking until you click on it. Just kidding. I'll stop talking. But anyway, click on it anyway. Hit the subscribe button. Apparently, people didn't like my Let's Taste Whiskey thing because about 20 subscribers bailed on me since this morning. So screw all y'all that abandoned me. If you want to, I'm trying to keep a view on the chat, as I always mention. I answer what I can, but the surefire way to get a hold of me is through a super chat. It doesn't matter. There's no minimum. It's not required, but it will guarantee that I see it, and it will guarantee I read the question or comment or whatever. With that underway, we did Corinne as our new member already, and Flux has given a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. No problem. Everything seems fine here. Just a couple of more people can fit. Yeah, it is severely overloaded, and he'll explain why. So let's jump in. Like, subscribe, notification, join the memberships too, super chat, whatever. Let's go. Back to the video.
And the ability to carry a considerable amount of cargo, the Sultana saw frequent use along the Mississippi between New Orleans and St. Louis, and earned a reputation as a troop transport, with river boats of this size and capability getting the attention of the U.S. military early on in the war effort. With the victory of the United States and subsequent cessation of Civil War hostilities came the surrender of the Confederate leader, General Robert E. Lee, on April 9, 1865. It would only be a handful of days, though, before the jubilant victory over the Confederacy was darkened, clouded by the assassination of then-President and Commander of Union Forces, Abraham Lincoln, on April 14th. All of this came at a time when both sides were negotiating the release of POWs back to their respective homelands, and for thousands of Union soldiers in the hellhole that was Andersonville Prison, the worst prison in the Civil War, as well as those in Cahaba, freedom was finally at hand. Their journey home would start by being packed into overcrowded train cars and hauled to the Union-held assembly point, Camp Fisk in Vicksburg, Mississippi, along the Mississippi River. On April 15th, the Sultana docked in Cairo, Illinois, and captained by James Cass Mason. News of President Lincoln's assassination reached the boat. Important to note here is that while these riverboats would get commissioned for military transport, the Sultana was one of many that were still privately owned, and Captain Mason was part owner. Electronic communications to the south had been cut off, though, due to the war. So, since telegrams could not be sent to major hubs along the Mississippi, Captain Mason, a stack of newspapers in hand, took it upon himself to set the Sultana and its crew underway to the south, spreading the news as far as New Orleans. The Union had commissioned multiple steamboats to pick up POWs from Vicksburg's Camp Fisk, and the Confederacy had initially negotiated a 1-to-1 prisoner exchange. One Union soldier for every Confederate soldier relinquished. Weary Union soldiers at Camp Fisk numbered in the thousands, suffering from camp fevers, severely malnourished, and traumatized emotionally from the cruelties they'd undergone. After their stop in New Orleans, the Sultana would head north again, having taken on a bit of cargo and passengers, with roughly 200 souls now on board between patrons and crew. By this point, April of 1865, though, Camp Fisk was so overwhelmed by POWs that the Confederacy's intended plan of a 1-to-1 prisoner exchange had spiraled out of control, since there were clearly more Union prisoners being relinquished than there would be Confederate prisoners to replace them. A planned, orderly arrangement for prisoner transfers had now degenerated, nearly overnight, into rushed chaos. With moving the infirmed Union soldiers out of Vicksburg and headed north, as hastily as possible, damn the consequences, quickly becoming the utmost priority, as ordered from top generals involved. 800 prisoners had been arranged to load onto the first steamboat commissioned to arrive, the Henry Ames, but this boat was delayed. By the time it arrived, officers at Vicksburg hastily loaded 1,300 plus onto the decks, and the Henry Ames was quickly underway. The next vessel arrived immediately after, the much smaller Olive Branch, and since they'd gotten so many soldiers aboard the Henry Ames already, and, owing to its smaller size, the Olive Branch would receive roughly 600 to 700 of the infirmed. Now, it's important to note, the vast majority of these men could barely stand, let alone walk. Most had to be held up or carried by more able-bodied comrades, and once on board, depending on the vessel, would resign themselves to cots or lying down in any open spaces on deck they could find. By 1800 hours on April 22nd, when the Sultana had arrived in Vicksburg, the docks had degenerated into a damn near free-for-all, with the United States government offering these commissioned vessels $5 per enlisted soldier and $10 per officer for transport north. You can probably see the foreshadowing here. Corruption and greed became rife in this desperate, quickly worsening situation.
Again,
The
well, let's
quartermaster
pause
at
it here. Hang
Vicksburg,
on.
a Union officer.
Yeah, again. How does that sound? That's usually how these things are. Somebody wants money. It's a money thing. And they were talking about the captain, Captain Mason, who was part owner of the ship. So just think, you own the ship, you get paid this much money for hauling people on it. What do you do if you don't want to pay for a captain? You be the captain yourself. He was the part owner and captain of the vessel, and he was 34 years old. Pretty young guy with money, apparently. That seemed to be the motivation here. But hey, we got the Jillian Ann said, I love the whiskey stream. Just watch the replay. And YouTube might have unsubbed some, if not all of those folks. Mama Susan does that. Yeah. Though that's the other thing. If you are a subscriber, double check to make sure you're still subscribed. But let's follow the money. Follow the money. It is a retro disaster just after the Civil War. But still, greed was present. Greed led to this accident. Greed, incompetence, and pretty much everything else that contributes to most maritime disasters.
Officer ultimately responsible for the movement of these troops through Camp Fisk and onto these vessels, Colonel Reuben Hatch, was a man with a known history of corruption, but had friends in high places. Earlier that same year, Hatch had been charged and brought before a competency board after getting caught routinely reporting dollar amounts incorrectly for government-acquired supplies and pocketing the difference. Found by
reporting the prices incorrectly. I believe we call that embezzlement, but yeah.
The board to be totally unfit for the task of a government quartermaster position. Yet here he was, the Camp Fisk quartermaster. Captain Mason, part owner of the Sultana, was also of questionable character, having already lost one vessel, confiscated from him after he attempted to haul contraband during the war effort. Captain Mason was in serious financial trouble by this time. As the Sultana docked at Vicksburg, there was another issue. A crack had developed in one of the boat's 4 boilers while underway toward Camp Fisk. The engineer on board had lowered the pressure in order to make it to Vicksburg, but this lower pressure meant much lower maximum speed on the river. A local engineer who was assisting with the repair, once they had docked at Vicksburg, recommended nothing less than a thorough refit of the faulty boiler. However,
okay, let's talk about boilers for a minute. Boilers on ships, old and new, are very, very problematic. If a boiler explodes, bad things happen. But I mean, this bursting of boilers, especially back around this time in the 1800s, was such a problem that it was actually excluded from insurance policies. You had to get extra insurance on the boilers. Let me bring it up here quickly. We can bring it up here in a minute. There's an insurance term called the Inch Marie clause, and weirdly enough, if you watched me on Good Logic show the other day, he mentioned the Inch Marie case as the only case he knew anything about that dealt with maritime law. And the Inch Marie case is a big maritime case. And what it was an 1887 case, so it was later than this, where it sort of set the standard for interpretation of insurance clauses and whatnot. Because basically, I guess we need to bring this up. There's some basic standard insurance clauses. And they're worded very, very, very specifically. So let me pull this up. They're called the Institute Time Clauses for hulls. Let's see how much we need to increase the size of this. It's not getting much bigger, but essentially, you are insured against what is called perils of the sea, things that just happen, the dangers, just the inherent dangers of sailing on the ocean. And these are in part 6, in clause 6 of the ITHC clause, that was call them. But these are this insurance covers loss and damage to the subject matter insured. So to the boat, you insure the boat. And this is insurance that covers damage to the boat caused by 1, perils of the seas, rivers, lakes, or other navigable waters, fire, explosion, violent theft by persons from outside the vessel, jettison, piracy, contact with land conveyance, dock or harbor equipment, earthquake, volcanic eruption, lightning, accidents in loading, discharging, shifting cargo. Shifting cargo is like where cargo inside the hold moves back and forth and damages stuff. Okay. And 6.2 is the Inch Marie clause that's now in these things. What happens when these bursting of boilers was such a big thing. And this negligence clause, it's kind of a negligence clause. It was introduced as a direct result of a boiler exploding on the vessel Inch Marie in 1887. Now, what it does is it's quite interesting. This covers additional perils. Just these are the perils that can happen because of negligence. And what the wording is very interesting here. It says, if we look at 6.2, this insurance covers loss of or damage to the subject matter caused by bursting of boilers. That's how big of a problem it is. It is specifically mentioned. Bursting of boilers is specifically mentioned in this insurance clause. So this covers losses or damages to subject matter insured caused by bursting of boilers, breaking of shafts and propeller shafts, or any latent defect in the machinery or the hull. Negligence of the master, officers, crew, pilots, negligence of repairers and charterers, barratry of master, officers, or crew, contact with aircraft, helicopters, or similar objects, provided, so it'll cover these, but provided that such loss or damage has not resulted from want of due diligence by the assured owners, managers, or superintendents, or any of their onshore management. So this is the interesting thing. It doesn't absolve the people doing it of liability. This is specifically designed to absolve the owners of liability for negligent repairs to the vessel, negligence of the crew or the master or the other officers. If the owners weren't aware of it, if the owners didn't know about it, if the owners weren't negligent themselves. But this is how bad of a situation that bursting of boilers were, is they were explicitly excluded. You could get the extra cover for a bursting of boilers, but the provision to get it covered was that the boiler could not have burst because of want of due diligence of the owners. So if the owners knew it should have been repaired, if the owners were aware that it should have been repaired, if they were aware that it was repaired but was repaired negligently or whatever, then it wouldn't be covered by the insurance clause. because the owners didn't exercise due diligence in making sure that everything was as safe as they could within their knowledge. Now, the interesting thing is it covers the damage to other things caused by the bursting of the boilers. So if the boiler explodes, this extra insurance would cover the damage caused by the bursting boiler, but it still wouldn't cover the boiler itself. So you'd have to replace the boiler not covered by the insurance. But if something got broken or damaged because of the exploding boiler, then the insurance would cover it. So this is how serious of an issue these boilers were. And if a boiler explodes and there's any real case to be made that the owners knew there was a problem with the boiler, knew there was a defect, which seems to be the case here. If they knew there was a defect, if they knew the repairs weren't done correctly, if they knew there were problems with the boiler and they still went ahead and did things anyway, then there's a good chance the insurance companies would deny the claims for the repair of the vessel or the loss of the vessel, whichever seems to be the case. While we're out here, we got a couple of supers. Duralon, thank you so much for the super sticker, the box of popcorn. I love popcorn. Seriously, that's like that's one of my food vices. I love popcorn. Brandon Lesko, thank you so much for the super chat. You gained 1,000 last week. Why your panties twisted? Because I want more subscribers. Thank you so much for that, by the way, Brandon. I'm 500 subscribers away from 25,000 subscribers. I want to hit that 25,000, and we will have a huge blowout. Ideally, I would like. I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but I would love to have a way to get 500 subscribers within the next 3 weeks, so that the next Fuck It Friday stream, or we were not 2 hours into this yet, so the next F It Friday stream can be a celebration of 25,000 subscribers. That's my goal. So anybody you know that might be interested in this channel, or even if they're not interested, just tell them to subscribe anyway. I want the numbers. I want to get those 500 subscribers so I can get up to 25,000, and we can have a huge blowout for that. That would be fun. Mr. Upper Torso, thank you so much. Since you cover maritime disasters, does a Delta P incident count? The Byford Dolphin incident seems so extreme it has unexplained. The Dolphin is on my list. The Dolphin incident is on the list. It's several weeks down the list, but it's on the list. Thank you so much. And I love Scotch. Thank you so much for the empty comment. Thank you so much for the super chat. I love Scotch too, but right now I am drinking the bottle that just happened to be sitting nearest me, which is the Yellow Rose Premium American Whiskey. I drank a lot yesterday because, as I mentioned earlier today, I don't want to make a big deal of it, but I had a friend that was killed in a motorcycle accident yesterday. So a group of us got together, told stories, and intentionally drank way too much. That's what we did. Then I came home. Then I had to do. I was going to do my whiskey tasting stream anyway this morning, but it sort of turned into a necessity, a hair of the dog. I had to have the drinks this morning to take the edge off of how I was feeling from the whiskey. But now we're back. We're just doing the regular night stream. Sorry to get us off track. Let's jump us back in. We've learned about the bursting of boilers. We've learned about the Inch Marie clause, which is the additional perils of the sea are covered, such as exploding boilers, unless the owners knew of the negligence. While we've popped out for just a quick second, make sure you hit that like button, and let's jump back into the story as soon as I find out which window has the story. There we go. See, this is the problem. This is what we're talking about. This is why the Inch Marie clause came to be a few years later. Damn it! God damn it. I did it again, didn't I? Fuck. I did it, didn't I? Sorry. Yep. Boomer. Thanks, everybody. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Remember when I did this 5 times? Was it a week ago? See, this is, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. Jesus, I didn't even have the right window up anyway, did I? You weren't even hearing it. Because I'm an idiot. Wow. This is exactly why I keep my face in a small screen here. This is exactly why I do it. All right, we're back. But when I do it like this, when I stop and I pause and I talk, people go, just close it. It's okay. And bring your face up. Don't keep your. But then when I do, I forget that I have done it because I'm watching a different stream. I'm watching a different screen than what's on here. And then I just keep watching the video and you're all wondering what the hell I'm doing. So, yeah. Just 5 times how drunk I wasn't drunk. It was such a fascinating story that we were all watching together. And I was watching the video, not watching the screen. And that's what I do. Because when I start the video, I have to bring it up and the screen covers my StreamYard screen and I don't see that it's not up. So yeah, when I pause it, this is what I'm going to be doing from now on, forever and ever. So, yep. Got no excuse other than I'm just an idiot. Let's go back and y'all can watch what you missed. I just wanted to keep you here longer.
Once they had docked at Vicksburg, recommended nothing less than a thorough refit of the faulty Fisk. The engineer on board had lowered the pressure in order to make it to Vicksburg, but this lower pressure meant much lower maximum speed on the river.
So the owners knew that the owner / captain knew that there were problems with the boiler. All right. Okay.
Local engineer who was assisting with the repair once they had docked at Vicksburg recommended nothing less than a thorough refit of the faulty boiler.
Shut up,
However,
Alan.
A refit would take days to finish, and the very profitable opportunity of soldiers needing transport en masse would by then have long passed. Captain Mason and his chief engineer would leverage the local mechanic to agree to a temporary repair, a flimsy patchwork riveted hastily in place over the cracked section. By the time the Olive Branch had departed and the Sultana had docked...
Oh, by the way, if you're just going to put a shitty weld over this, do you have any idea how much pressure these boilers have when you're feeding them and steaming up the river? The pressure is immense. That's why they explode. And I don't think putting some shoddy rivets over a hole in the boiler is really, really that good of an idea.
Tensions between the camp's leadership had risen to a fever pitch. A handful of officers assisting in the loading process, acting in good faith at Camp Fisk, had grown to suspect that day that bribes were changing hands in order to force more men onto each boat, or even worse, the complete opposite. When it came time to load the Sultana, Captain Mason demanded they take on, quote, as many as his boat could carry as soon as possible.
Think he wanted all
now,
that money?
Being a boat that had capacity officially for roughly 376, a few hundred more was not completely out of the question, as this was somewhat of a regular occurrence when boats were commissioned for troop transport. However, with Captain Mason's insistence, combined with Colonel Hatch's eagerness to pack as many on boats that day as possible, the crowds of men being ushered on board were near unstoppable. And for the soldiers' parts, they just wanted to go home and were eager to go wherever they were instructed to help make that happen. The officers directly involved in loading were prepared to see 12 to 1,500 men aboard the Sultana, already a huge amount, but had no idea an additional group of 300 to 400 more were well on their way. The officers that were acting honorably made an attempt to bring both the suspected bribes and concerns of overloading up with camp leadership, such as Colonel Hatch, a General Donna, and a General Smith, all of which choosing not to step in, and thus the loading continued. Some reports state bribes by boat owners to Camp Fisk officers in order to pack their decks were so egregious that it reported 2 additional vessels departed Vicksburg entirely empty. It was a night rife with greed and corruption, and weary combat veterans were traded like a commodity. The Sultana would get underway with upwards of 2,300 souls on board.
That's insane. That is just crazy. And I mean, you think what you get $5 was it $5 for a soldier and 10 for an officer? Is that what it was? Don't know how many officers on there, but if you get at least 2,300 people at $5 a head, you're looking at over $10,000, which was probably just an immeasurable amount of money back at the end of the Civil War. Brendan, let's go. If you will it, it is no dream. Theodore Herzl, just do whatever you did last week. No, last week was the problem. We're not doing what I did last week. We're specifically never, ever, ever doing it again.
Grew more treacherous every day to spring snowmelt in the north. The boat would struggle going upriver against the stronger, increasingly turbulent waters. The souls on board were more than 6 times its capacity. There was standing room only. Many of the freed prisoners were so sick or badly injured that they had to be carried aboard. Still, the men were glad because they were on their way home.
Now, let's look at the problem here. You have weak boilers. Your boiler is shot. It needs to be completely refitted. You've made a little patch in it. So what's this doing? It's slowing you down. And they're overloaded, which slows you down. They're going upstream, up the Mississippi River against the current, which slows you down. How do you increase the speed? You feed the boilers. You get the steam pumping. You increase the pressure in the boiler. We got snoring dogs. Dog snores. All right. Yeah, so you have all of these problems. These three main problems. Problem with the boiler, the current, being overloaded. So you have to pump the steam further, harder, and faster into the boiler. And the boiler has to pump it out faster, and that leads to problems.
The boat would dock briefly again in Helena, Arkansas, on April 25th at about 1 a.m., presumably to offload a bit of cargo. Besides these passengers, there were 2 companies of infantry under arms, making a grand total of 2,300 souls on board, besides a number of mules and horses and over 100 hogsheads of sugar, the latter being in the hold of the boat and serving as ballast. At Helena, Arkansas, by some unaccountable means, a photograph of the boat with her massive living freight was taken. Each soldier seemed to be bent on having his face discernible in the picture. I entreated and exhorted prudence, while I sat on the roof, my feet pendant and my hands on a float, momentarily expecting a capsizing and sinking. This would be the final image of the vessel before it and so many of those on board would meet their end. Now, contrary to my little map here for presentation purposes, and compared to how it looks today, the Mississippi and rivers like it at the time were a twisting, meandering, turbulent mess, even when not flooded.
And that's something I didn't know. I was not aware that the Mississippi River looked like that 140 years ago. Flux said, when I went through basic training, they literally transport us in cattle trailers, nut to butt. Military sees troops as cattle, nothing more. It's sad. And here, the people that owned the ship and were also the captain of the ship just saw it as dollars. So you get both of those. They want to get people moved. People want dollars. They pack them in. And is it the guy, when they were taking that picture, the guy was worried it was going to capsize because everybody wanted to be in the picture, and we're all right there at the front of the ship.
These steamboat voyages, especially traveling upriver, were days, sometimes weeks-long journeys, battling with the elements, river debris, painstaking navigation, and steamers were pushed to their maximum if they wanted to make decent time. After Helena, the Sultana had made another stop the next night at about 7 p.m., April 26th. Docked at Memphis this time, offloading cargo, and the healthier soldiers even assisting. Those who wished were also allowed enough time to disembark and head into town briefly that evening. By roughly midnight, the boat got back underway, just after taking on a load of coal for the boilers near Memphis, before heading north again. Roughly 7 miles north of Memphis at 2 a.m., all was confusion. Men were jumping into the river by the hundreds. I saw at least 20 drown at once. As fast as one would feel he was drowning, he would clutch at the nearest person, and I believe many a bold swimmer was drowned that night who could have saved himself if alone. Tennessean survivor Andrew Perry, clinging to the boat, watched with astonishment as a man and a mule battled for a floating piece of the wheelhouse. The mule would get its front feet on the raft, and the man would knock it off with a club. It would come again. For several times the mule almost capsized the craft. I don't think I ever saw a more earnest fight. The mule finally gave up or was killed. Hundreds of my comrades were fastened, held down by the timbers of the decks, and had to burn, while the water seemed to be one solid mass of human beings struggling with the waves. The light and the screams at this time cannot be described.
Can you imagine that? I mean, people are fighting with donkeys to survive, and just people are trapped under burning wood and just get toasted. People are piling on top of each other, jumping off the vessel or falling off the vessel on top of other people, pushing those other people under the water, only to be piled on by people above them. I mean, this. What do? I mean,
the explosion originating from the boiler room had ripped upward through all decks and destroyed the pilot house, removing all means of control, immediately setting the boat adrift at the mercy of the frigid, flooded Mississippi. Nowadays, we tend to take for granted how civilized these rivers can look when crossing them or looking across them from their banks. But one way to picture these rivers of old, prior to being tamed, is to imagine what they look like, how they behave during periods of flood when they crest their levees nowadays. The debris, the swirling, the turbulent strength of the current, the riverbanks seemingly non-existent, the freezing temperature of spring waters originating from northern snowmelt, the hordes of panicked people and hoofstock. This was what these survivors were now up against, and at 2 a.m. in the dead of night, the only light being the fire that had quickly and completely engulfed the wooden steamboat, a near 300-foot-long wall of flame that now continued to float like something out of a nightmare. There seemed to be acres of struggling humanity on the waters, some on debris of the wreck, some on the dead carcasses of horses, some holding to swimming live horses, some on boxes, bales of hay, drift logs, etc. Soon we parted company with the wreck and the crowd and drifted out into the darkness almost alone.
Acres of struggling humanity. That's pretty damn descriptive.
On a vessel where life preservers were few, and the one or two lifeboats it did have were ravaged by fire, immediate rescue fell to many brave souls, able-bodied and clear of mind enough to aid those still on board with any sort of flotation they could find in the short time they had, throwing mattresses, boards, chairs, trunks all overboard toward the sea of humanity, struggling desperately in the frigid waters, illuminated only by the flames, many disappearing into darkness below or away from the drifting vessel. Another steamboat, the General Boynton, passed by but did not stop. Survivor A.C. Brown recalled it seemed as though the Boynton felt rescue attempts with their vessel would be futile, instead choosing to race toward Memphis and sound the alarm. Navy gunboats and steamers sent out.
Yeah, and see, that's the other thing. They didn't have telephones. There was no ship-to-shore lines. There was nothing. That was the only way to get help, was to just not save anyone and go down and raise the alarm, as they said. That just adds a whole new layer. There's no way to get help.
Out any lifeboats they could. However, this accident site was still miles upstream from Memphis, and everything and everyone was spreading out rapidly at the mercy of the current. In total, of the 2,300 on board, roughly 1,200 did not survive.
1,200 people died in one ship accident. So that answers your question there. Yeah, about half. About half survived. About 1,200 people died in one single boat accident. Someone asked, "How wide is the Mississippi?" I don't. Let's ask Google. Google knows everything. How wide is the Mississippi River at Memphis? It says it's typically half a mile wide between the Memphis Bluff and the mainline Arkansas levee on the other side. So about half a mile, I guess. Well, I got the dog snoring now. Cool. All right.
Now, theories of the boat careening or swaying.
Let's talk about boilers.
From side to side due to its overloaded upper decks, theories of Confederate sabotage with multiple rebel sympathizers coming forward to claim responsibility. Debates raged soon after over these and other potential causes. Would-be rebel saboteurs, however, each had wildly different and elaborate claims.
We'll get to the captain.
Quote, carried it out. From hidden timed.
So here we go. This is 1865. And there were still conspiracy theories going on back then. There were still people claiming to be part of things. The conspiracy theories and the false claims of attribution are not a modern thing in our world. They've been around since there's been the ability to come up with a conspiracy, I guess. But yeah, the captain, we'll get to the captain here in a minute. It reminds me of a big dirty ditch. That's why it's a big muddy.
Explosives and lumps of coal, to someone simply shooting at the boilers and causing the explosion. What was eventually discovered, though, by experts in this field, corroborated by evidence and documentation from the time period, and even sparked the founding of the Hartford Steam Boiler Inspection and Insurance Company, pointed substantially toward what is now known as one of the deadliest trends of accidents to come out of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Though the potential of steam power seemed infinite, controlling the power was still crudely developed. As applications for steam power became more complex, the dangers also became more severe. With thousands of boilers in operation throughout the country, there was also widespread ignorance about the properties of steam and the causes of boiler explosions.
Steam power was still very, very, very young at that point. It's kind of fascinating to think there was a point in history when we didn't understand steam power. We still don't really understand a lot about steam as lay people. I remember my father. He was a foreman for a trucking company that hauled road construction equipment from one project to another, and they had a big boiler in one of the. It was also a ready mix, like a concrete manufacturing place. But they had this big boiler that had a steam release valve on it. And watching the power from that steam come out of it, he taught me a valuable lesson to never, ever, ever touch anything that has anything to do with steam unless you absolutely have to. When you can take steam, not water, just steam shooting out of this little valve and can cut the end of a push broom off with it, it's pretty scary. But I mean, there's like a point. Sorry, I just read Echo Pa's comment there. I'm not going to repeat that. But yeah, the power of steam. Steam can be used to cut solid objects, let alone, I mean, just the pressure it's under when it explodes is pretty fascinating.
In the 1850s, explosions were occurring at the rate of almost 1 every 4 days. Most dismissed these incidents as acts of God. Those who ran industrial concerns simply assumed that their boilers would explode and they would lose 1 or 2 workers. Others,
Jesus, how is that possible? I mean, welcome to the 1800s. Explosions were occurring at the rate of almost 1 every 4 days. And most dismiss these as acts of God. They simply assumed that they're people who had boilers just assumed they were going to explode at some point and kill people. They just assumed that. Great to be the guy standing near the damn boiler.
Namely, members of the Polytechnic Club, which included future founders of Hartford Steam Boiler, had other ideas. This new 24 flue style of boiler had proven to be incredibly powerful and efficient when compared with their traditional 2 flue counterparts. Boiler explosion theory was not yet well understood, though, and decisions were made hastily and haphazardly in this powerful version's widespread installation and operation. For instance, those boilers that performed so well and ended up in many lower Missouri and Mississippi River applications had yet to be proven in poor water conditions, something these rivers are notorious for as they progress downstream. These 24 flue fire tube style boilers also were inherently more difficult to keep clean, owing to their much tighter spaces inside. Frequent cleaning of boilers and steam engines is absolutely crucial, as the water they pull in for use is the same water the boat is floating in. Since differing water conditions hadn't been factored in, water filtration systems were not in place quite yet for boilers like these either.
Yikes. So they're bringing in all the mud from the river and it's just sitting in the bottom of a boiler. There's a comment I wanted to comment on here. Boy, it seems to have scrolled its way. It was from Lawrence asking, do you ever respond to emails? I do. I try to respond to all of the emails I can. Or if they look like they need a response, I do. I don't get that many emails. So I don't recall getting any emails from you, Lawrence. If you did, send it again. Or if you were just asking for future reference, then yeah, I try to respond to the emails. So yeah, that's the answer to that question.
To this, iron expansion and fatigue was not well understood by this time, and thus the iron used in their construction was of poor quality. Charcoal hammered number 1, a thin, non-homogeneous, poor quality of iron, saw widespread use at the time. This particular thin type of iron became far too brittle when heated and cooled rapidly, leading to fatigue and cracking in the metal. It was found by experts to be, quote, not a suitable iron for boiler construction. The buildup from poor water conditions inside these boilers, or incrustation, was also significant, especially since proper maintenance and cleaning of these machines frequently took a back seat to profits and schedules. The shoddy patchwork performed hastily in Vicksburg would end up somewhat of a moot point once the industry-wide failures began to be understood and exposed. Operators would regularly push them beyond their limits, rigging up systems forcing safety valves to stay open, and in situations like steamboat racing, yes, this was also common practice, especially on the Mississippi to win over customers, or pushing upriver during springtime with 6 times more load on board than designed for. The Sultana and similar steam engines of the time period were the very definition of ticking time bombs.
Yeah, again, what could possibly go wrong if you're racing with boilers? Yeah. Human error, and this is human error in the age when we didn't understand this. Justin Wright, thank you so much for the super chat. One of the famous World War II vids was a UK battleship capsizing and exploding. That explosion was the boilers. It ripped the ship apart worse than the Hood's magazine explosion from Bismarck. Wow. If you have a link, please send that to me. Send that to me at my email address, which I try to get to, thelegalvices@gmail.com, or on Twitter at thelegalvices. Lauren says, thank you for the answer. I like your style, but didn't get a response last time. I don't recall getting an email. Please resend the email to me. And I'll definitely check it out. Sorry.
Just a few of many example incidents in similar fire tube boilers on U.S. waters. The Steamboat Sultana exploded in 1852, resulting in roughly 100 deaths. The Isaac Newton boiler explosion in December of 1863 killed several aboard. The Steamboat Missouri exploded in January of 1866, resulting in 100-plus deaths. The W.R. Carter explosion in February of 1866 killed 125. This issue, however, went far beyond 24 flue-style fire tube boilers being pushed too hard on them.
I mean, God, are you listening to these numbers? These numbers, like hundreds of people are dying every couple of months from exploding boilers. Now you're starting to see why these were included in, why they were included as additional insurance you could pay for. But if there's any indication that the owners knew about it, knew there were problems, were doing things negligent, then they weren't going to get it paid for.
The Mississippi. Since the poor quality iron had been used in so many boilers at the time, explosions in all applications were adding up year after year.
Jesus.
Now, in my research during this project, it was easy to start seeing the pattern of attempted narrative shift, like, oh, the boats were just careening from side to side, captains were running them with low water levels, it was all sabotage, etc. Not to say these things didn't happen, of course, but the fact that these were poorly built in such widespread quantities was likely difficult for people to come to terms with at the time. Manufacturers, operators, and customers alike, industry-wide, were understandably reliant on these dangerous but powerful machines and would be slowly forced to change their ways, replacing poorly made boilers en masse in an effort to start making safe, effective use of the great potential in steam engines. Once sufficient awareness had been raised to the need for routine inspections and a more thorough understanding of these critical issues, by the late 1860s, rapid removal of these boilers using Mississippi River water especially quickly became paramount. And in the late 1870s, newer, more durable types of iron were also being developed and implemented. But this was, at the time, frustratingly, a largely forgotten story, and even to this day remains but a whisper in the annals of history, and a major part of why I've chosen to kick this series off with this particular tragedy. It's easy to understand looking back nowadays just how it was overshadowed by other major historical events at the time, but to think back on what survivors, families, communities went through as a result of this tragedy, and a couple books I've read on the event were inspired by and written because of this lack of awareness. For these reasons, in present day, it is largely unknown as to the wreck's exact location. In the 1980s, an archaeology expedition discovered what is likely the blackened remains of the Sultana, buried under a patch of private farmland on that stretch of the since redirected Mississippi River. In addition to this, it would mean the general area is also now a de facto burial site for so many soldiers lost in the event. Multiple historical plaques have been constructed, the marker in Memphis, another at the Mount Olive Baptist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee, one in Muncie, Indiana, another in Vicksburg, and another in Ohio, amongst others. As for the families and descendants, they firmly believe the location of the wreck is hallowed ground and should never be excavated, and that the location should never be made public.
Wow, these are the people. That's a rough video to watch there, you know. Geez. $1,600 people, 1,200 people gone, 2,300 people on the vessel. Half the people on there didn't make it. And again, why? Money, corruption, greed, cutting corners, especially in the early days with this technology, which they didn't understand. I mean, it was just, I don't know if and this is on the end of a war. You'd think there would have been some understanding of the value of human life, but doesn't seem to have been really. I mean, I don't have anything really to add for that. It's just astounding. Well, there's one thing I wanted to bring up here about this. It's in here, Steamboat Sultana. There was one short video. Where did it go? Yeah, okay. This is sort of a recap, a shorter. It's like an 8-minute recap by the history guy. It was a friendly, likable character. Well, so we'll watch this 8-minute. Oh, it's a meme raid. Oh, hey, memes. Welcome, Meme Copium. For those of you just joining us here from Meme Copium, we will have Meme Copium on with me on Wednesday. We'll have Meme Copium. We will have the Law Patrol, or whatever his new name is that he got yesterday, and we will have our other special guest. Oh, I already said his name. Madcore Mofo will also be here. We will have the Aussie contingent talking about Aussie folk hero Chopper Reed and Ned Kelly. So hey, welcome, Meme Copian people. You've got here towards the end of the stream. We're gonna be hanging around here for a bit longer. But the main part of it was done, and you're just in time for a few minute recap of the accident we talked about today. If you want to go back and see the previous hour video where we break down a longer video about the sinking of the Sultana, please do. It was and is the largest maritime disaster in U.S. history. But I wanted to bring up a short 8-minute view from a rather fun guy to watch. It's the same thing. It raises a lot of the same issues, but there's also some new perspectives on this accident here. Let me get it up here. This is the history guy. So we'll just let this play through here, and then we'll talk about some other stuff.
Hi, I'm the history guy. I have a degree in history. I love history. If you love history too, this is the channel for you. If you're interested enough in history to be watching the history guy, then my guess is you've probably heard of the sinking of the Titanic. What you might not know is that the Titanic disaster was not the worst maritime disaster in American history. That actually occurred on the Mississippi River. And while the story of the explosion aboard the Steamboat Sultana is interesting, what is maybe even more interesting is the reason that you may never have heard of it. And so today, we are going to remember the Sultana and her victims. The Sultana was a 260-foot wooden side-wheeled steam transport built by the John Lithowberry Shipyard in Cincinnati in 1862. Registering 1,719 tons, she was intended for the lower Mississippi cotton trade, and for 2 years ran a regular route between St. Louis and New Orleans. With a regular crew of 85 and room for 376 passengers and cargo, she was frequently commissioned to transport Union troops during the war. In April of 1865, the Sultana was in Vicksburg, Mississippi, when its captain, J. Cass Mason, was approached by Lieutenant Colonel Reuben Hatch, the chief quartermaster of Vicksburg. Hatch had a deal for Mason. Thousands of federal prisoners who had been held at Confederate prisoner of war camps in Alabama and Georgia had been paroled and had been brought to Vicksburg. The U.S. government offered to pay $5 per enlisted man and $10 per officer to any riverboat captain who was willing to take the paroled prisoners north. Hatch offered to promise Mason a full load of 1,400 prisoners if Mason would pay Hatch a kickback. Anxious for the windfall, Mason agreed to the bribe. While the prisoners were brought to the town of Vicksburg, the Sultana finished her run to New Orleans and then sped back to Vicksburg. But on the way, one of her boilers sprung a leak. Anxious that a lengthy repair could cost him this valuable commission, Mason settled for a temporary repair. Although Hatch had promised 1,400 paroled prisoners, a paperwork error led the Union officer in charge to load the entire group. 2,100 paroled prisoners on the Sultana, a ship built to accommodate 376 passengers.
Yeah, so that was the problem. Remember, and I had like giving his perspective is a little different. You know, where there's paperwork problems involved. I'm kind of going for the meme copium. Hi, meme copium guys. I'm going for the brick and mortar explanation where they were given $5 for every passenger, and I believe for every soldier, and $10 for every officer, I believe. So they were, if I recall correctly. So yeah, they pile people in that ship. They get paid. And the owner was also the captain. We're going to get back to the captain in a minute here after this finishes.
Significantly overcrowded, the Sultana left Vicksburg on April 24th, 1865. The Mississippi spring floods that year were the worst in history, and Sultana's boilers struggled to push the overcrowded boat up against the spring flood. Near 2 a.m. on April 27, 1865, 7 miles north of Memphis, Tennessee, 3 of Sultana's boilers exploded. The explosion tore apart the boat. Men were thrown into the river. The forward part of the upper decks collapsed into the exposed furnace boxes and set the boat ablaze. Men jumped into the river to avoid the flames, but weakened from their time in the prison camps, they couldn't fight the current and drowned. A southbound steamer, the Bostonian II, arrived on scene about 3 a.m., an hour after the explosion, and rescued many survivors. Other survivors called for help as they floated by the docks in Memphis and were pulled from the water by people there. Given the location of the tragedy, ironically, many of the survivors were actually saved by former Confederate soldiers. In the end, about 700 people were pulled alive from the water, but about 200 of those died later from burns and exposure. Captain Mason and most of the officers of the Sultana also perished. In the end, the death toll was over 1,700, nearly 200 more than Titanic. The explosion aboard Sultana killed nearly as many Union troops as the Battle of Shiloh. And in addition, several women and children who were also on board also perished. There is some controversy as to the cause of the explosion. The official report blamed a combination of the boat being overcrowded, steaming against the swollen river, poorly managed boilers, and the temporary boiler repair. Water sloshing between the boilers had created a surge in pressure that exploded the boilers. It all could have been avoided had the water level in the boilers been kept higher. A second theory was that the Sultana was destroyed by an act of sabotage, the victim of something called a coal torpedo.
Well, they also talked about how the shoddy repairs that were done on the leak, and then when you, as we talked about earlier, when you're pushing upstream against current with more than 6 times the amount of people that were supposed to be on that ship, as well as just the weak pressure of the boiler, you got to put more pressure on the boiler to try to counteract those things, and that leads to explosions. But as we said, hey, there's some conspiracy theories back in the day too.
Special bomb desired to look like coal and go into the boilers. A known Confederate agent was said to have made a deathbed confession to blowing up the Sultana. While the Confederates were known to have destroyed several riverboats using these sorts of coal torpedoes, others argued that the dynamics of the explosion aboard the Sultana indicate a boiler accident. What should be more controversial is that no one was ever held accountable for the disaster. The Union officer who sent the 2,100 prisoners from the parolee camp was originally court-martialed for overloading the boat, but the court-martial was overturned when they found out that he had been in the camp all day and didn't actually load anyone on the boat. The captain who did load the men on the boat was a West Point graduate and a regular Army officer, and the Army was loath to try him. Captain Mason told him that the boat was overcrowded, but not overloaded, and insisted that he had carried this many people on the boat before.
Oh, yeah, sure he has.
Colonel Hatch, who hatched the entire scheme to begin with, was politically connected. He avoided responsibility by immediately resigning his commission and thus was no longer accountable to a military review board. The Sultana was loaded with 2,100 prisoners, 7 times the number of people that she was designed to carry, and not one person was ever held accountable for that mistake. Sultana survivors held reunions all the way up until 1936, when the last survivor finally died 71 years after the Sultana sunk. There's several memorials and markers throughout the country to commemorate the deaths aboard the Sultana. But if you've never heard of it, don't be surprised. Even people in 1865 barely heard of it. You have to understand what was going on in April of 1865. On April 9th, Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. 5 days later, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. On April 26th, the day before the Sultana disaster, John Wilkes Booth, the assassin, was caught and killed. And that same day, General Joseph Johnston surrendered the last large Confederate army. In the horrors of the war, the people of America barely noticed another 1,700 deaths. It barely made the back page of the newspaper. These were men who signed up to fight for their country. They underwent the horrors of war, endured the unspeakable horrors of the prisoner of war camps, and right as they had found freedom, they died horribly, burned to death or frozen to death, victims of greed and incompetence, and they were barely even noticed in their time because they weren't even the biggest news of the day. And that's why it's up to us to remember the victims of the explosion aboard the Sultana. I'm the History Guy. I hope you enjoyed this edition of my series, 5 Minutes of History, short snippets of forgotten history, 5 to 10 minutes long.
So, yeah, that was the key right there. Nobody was ever held accountable for it. Nobody cared. Literally, nobody cared that 1,600 people died, or 1,200 people, whatever. Yeah, nobody cared. Because they were dealing with other things, and as we heard at the end of the last video, this was happening. There were hundreds of people dying every couple of months in ship steamer in boiler explosions. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy, but this is how it used to be. This is how dangerous shipping was on the rivers and even out on the oceans using these gigantic steam boilers. You would get hundreds of people dying every few weeks. So, this would be like a car accident today. We go, okay, there's a car accident. I mean, it's fascinating. But I said we would talk about the captain here. And by the way, one of our faithful viewers has sent, and I have just released new emojis. There are a bunch of new emojis there that if you've joined and signed up for the membership, then you have access to five new emojis. So jump in, put those to good use. That was John Byrne. John Byrne has sent the emojis, so enjoy those. They're kind of fun. There's the dogs, a new unbreaded, a new foil hat, and yeah, there we go. Rose just posted them all up there. Those are the new ones. So everybody have fun with those. And let me bring up this little bit about the captain. He was a piece of work. Let's see. Apparently, I have closed his window. So let me bring it right back up again, because thankfully I know exactly where it was. Chrome tab. Where are you, Mr. Chrome tab? Aha, that's why it wasn't coming up. It was not there. So, okay. Give me just one quick second. Boom. There we go. James Mason. So this is from the Sultana Museum. See if we can expand this a little bit more. Nope, it's not going to let us grow it bigger. There we go. Captain James Mason. We'll just read through this here real quick. Unscrupulous master of the Sultana. Again, this guy was part owner of the boat, 34 years old. Born in Lynchburg, Virginia, around 1831, James Cass Mason was brought to Missouri as a child and grew up beside the river. As a young adult, he began work as a clerk on steamboats on the Mississippi River and eventually became master and/or owner of a few boats. On November 27, 1860, he married Rowena Mary Dozier, the daughter of a well-known steamboat magnate. Ooh, he's married into the steamboat family, and eventually took over as master of the steamboat Rowena. The steamboat named after his wife. Owned by his father-in-law and named after his wife. In February 1863, during the middle of the Civil War, Mason and Rowena were stopped for a were stopped for a routine inspection by the crew of a Union gunboat. Eventually, it was discovered that Captain Mason was carrying 2,000 pairs of pants for the Confederacy, pants or prison, for the Confederacy, and the Rowena was seized as contraband of war, initially imprisoned. Mason was eventually released, but his steamboat was not. On April 18th, with the Rowena now in government service, the boat hit a snag and sank about 30 miles below Cairo, Illinois. Although interaction between James Cass Mason and his father-in-law came to an abrupt end, the young captain landed on his feet. Father-in-law cut him off. He landed on his feet and soon became master of the Belle Memphis. Always a daredevil, on May 9th, 1863, Mason entered his new steamboat in a three-way race against the steamboat city of Alton and Sultana. Although Mason and his Belle Memphis won the race, Mason was impressed enough by what he saw in the Sultana that when she came on the market in March 1864, James Cass Mason was one of the purchasers, buying a 1/4 share in that boat. With the Union capture of the Confederate stronghold of Vicksburg and Port Hudson, the Mississippi suddenly ran unvexed to the sea, and hundreds of steamboats began making the lucrative run from St. Louis to New Orleans. Over time, however, there was more competition than commerce, and James Cass Mason, now the captain of the Sultana, began hurting for money. Again, with the money. After a couple of mishaps with the Sultana, which needed costly repairs, Mason was forced to sell off most of his controlling shares until he had a 1/16 interest in the steamboat. On the morning of April 15th, 1865, Mason and the Sultana were in Cairo, Illinois, when the Telegraph reported that President Abraham Lincoln had been murdered in Washington, D.C. Grabbing an armload of Cairo newspapers, Mason carried the first news of the assassination down the Mississippi River, becoming the unofficial messenger of death. While stopped at Vicksburg, Captain Mason was approached by Captain Reuben Benton Hatch, the chief quartermaster at Vicksburg. And remember, we all heard how corrupt Hatch was, and this was his big mastermind. Thousands of recently released Union prisoners of war, fresh from the prison pens in Andersonville and Cahaba, I don't know, Alabama, had been collected outside the city and were about to be released and sent home to the north. Hatch knew that Mason was hurting for money and offered him a deal. The U.S. government was paying a stipend to steamboat captains willing to carry loads of prisoners upriver. If Mason would agree to give a kickback of the stipend to Hatch, the quartermaster would agree that when Mason came back upriver, there would be at least 1,000 paroled prisoners waiting for him. Naturally, Mason took the bait. On April 24th, the Sultana returned to Vicksburg. Although one boiler had sprung a leak, which required immediate repairs, Mason sought out Captain Hatch about his promised load of paroled prisoners. Through misunderstanding, unscrupulous activity, sheer ignorance, and wanton incompetence, close to 2,000 prisoners were crowded onto a boat legally registered to carry only 376 passengers. In the end, even Captain Mason, who would benefit from every single person placed on his boat, protested when the load became too great. Well, he protested, but he still went ahead with it, it seems like. For 2 days, the Sultana steamed upriver. All the time, Captain Mason and his crew warned the prisoners to stay in one place and not move around. just stay there for 2 days. Don't move around. If you move around, we might capsize. Fearful that the Sultana would capsize or burst her boilers. Well, guess what happened? That's exactly what happened. After unloading over 135 tons of sugar from the hold, the top-heavy steamboat started upriver. At 2 a.m. on April 27, 1865, the boilers on the Sultana suddenly exploded, tearing a massive hole through the center of the upper decks. Within minutes, the boat caught fire, and over the next 5 hours, burnt to the water's edge before sinking a few miles above Memphis. Captain Mason was uninjured by the explosion and immediately began tearing off water for people to float upon. He was seen helping on all 3 decks and was last seen at the stern of the lowest deck, tossing pieces of wood into the water. He was never seen to leave the wreck, and his body was never recovered. James Cass Mason was just 37 years old. So, He got them into this mess, but at least he had the balls and the good sense to do the honorable thing and go down with the ship. He apparently died trying to do what he could to help save people from a situation that he created out of greed and incompetence. Flux. Moral of the story, F rich people. This is who rich people get, and this is how rich people get and stay rich. Let's try that again. This is how rich people get and stay rich. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, if there, I mean, it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't make anything better. But at least he went down with the ship. He tried to save people, but I mean, it's you know, we say there's a saying here in Korea. It's like you fix the barn door after the horses have escaped. The horses had escaped, and he was trying to fix the barn door at that point. As I said, that was a rather short stream. It was like an hour and a half. We have this planned here to do a 2-hour show as normal. So what we can just kind of talk about things in general for the remaining 30 minutes. We'll go through the week schedule again and do whatever we need to do, and probably wrap it up a little bit early. Like I said, it's a short story. There's just not much known about it. And how is that a thing? That's something to talk about just in and of itself. It's the single largest maritime disaster in United States history, and there's just not a lot of information about it out there. Because, like you were saying, it was the major events were happening in the Civil War. Lincoln was being assassinated. John Wilkes Booth was getting caught. So this horrific disaster, just nobody reported it. That's wild to think. Yeah, no use closing the barn doors after the horse bolts. Yeah, that's pretty much. But at least he tried. At least he did the honorable thing at the end. But there's that Sultana Museum website has some really, really interesting stories from people that were involved in the accident, people that experienced it, people that were related to parts of it. There's some really fascinating things. I just wanted to focus on the captains, because he was sort of at the center of all of it, actually. Rose says, I'm going to get this out there on several channels. What are you getting out there on several channels? I hope. Anyway, while I'm here, we'll do our midstream grift, even though it's near the end of the stream. We've got 241 likes with 265 people. So please hit that like button. If you're going to leave me now, which 40 of you just have, if you're going to leave me now, hit the like button on your way out. Do me that little bit of a favor. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. And as I said, it looks like YouTube is either unsubscribing people from me, or people just don't like my whiskey stream. But make sure you're still subscribed if you were earlier, because sometimes YouTube does their thing and disappears people. And we have the memberships. Join the memberships. There's 3 tiers of memberships. Decide what you want, but all levels get access to these awesome new emojis that Rose has put out. And I guess that's pretty much the end of Maritime Monday today. So we'll just kind of sit here and chill for a little bit. We can talk about what we want to talk about. So come back next week when we will have another maritime disaster. And I'm trying to get Brick Immorter on my show. Desperately trying. I hope he can get here. Right. I just saw a tweet from Ron Coleman, who is a fantastic lawyer. Says that my first observation about Salt Lake City is of the sky's eerie darkness. Will the morning bring relief, as in my native land? He says he's escaping from the Gentiles. That's funny. If you live in Utah. You'll know why that's funny. For a Jew to go to Utah to escape from the Gentile. For some reason, the Mormons refer to non-Mormons as Gentiles. But anyway, that's totally off the point. That just kind of caught my eye there. Jillian Ann says, I love the whiskey stream. Next Malort stream. Thank God Malort is not available here in Korea. Yeah, it doesn't exist here. So it's not poisoning Koreans. It's not killing Koreans. They're making do with their own soju, but yeah, Malort isn't here to wreak its vengeance and wrath upon the Korean society. Thank God for that. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah. How did I get, Shannon Z asks, how did I get interested in maritime stories, etc.? That's what I practice. I mean, that's what I do. I work in a law firm that does 70% maritime law and about 30% general business and transaction and contractual things. But most of what I do in my office and as a lawyer is maritime issues. And everybody on all the other law tubers on their law streams, they talk about all the trials and things, which I do as well. But I thought, in talking with the early vice, I guess we're supposed to call ourselves, what are we now? Oh yeah, the Vice Squad. That's what they dubbed us, the Vice Squad. Talking with early members of the Vice Squad, that people were asking about videos about things that I do. And so I started doing some boat collisions, just like videos of ship collisions and things like that. And that sort of progressed into maritime accidents. So that's kind of how it happened. It was sort of organic. I thought I would set aside Monday. Monday's typically a slow day. Just set Mondays aside to do maritime accidents, maritime disasters, and things like that. Because that's what I do. That's what I know about, and that's what I can talk about forever. So that's kind of the short answer. Oh, we got another Jillian super chat. Thank you so much. Robert Patterson is my most recent demigod, Richard Patterson. So you did the same. I kept calling him Robert Patterson. Richard Patterson. Sir Richard Patterson, the nose, the whiskey noser. Have I ever spent any time at sea? Thank you so much for that super chat, by the way. No, I have. I mean, I've been on boats and ships to investigate accidents and things. Yeah. But I've never been a sailor on a vessel. So that's the answer there. Guy Vermicton. Flux. Thank you, Flux. I passed out last night. The whiskey stream is for the second half of my day. Lol. I think my next hat will be Vice Squad snapback. I've been thinking about merch. It's such a high stress, low return thing that it's not really. Do we want it? Do we want merch? Like, if you do, I can you go somewhere to one of the online merch providers. What I did want to do merch. I want to do like Legal Vice's shot glasses, things like that. Ashtrays, things that I enjoy, but I can't find anywhere that can do them, because I don't need to order 1,000 of them, have them sent to my house, and then have me mail them out. You need something like Teespring or whatever they are that you can order them, they make them, and they ship them out. Something like that. But there's nowhere that does shot glasses and ashtrays and things like Legal Vice, things like that. So we can do hats, I guess. And I can't imagine anybody wanting a Legal Vice's shirt or anything like that. We can do hats or something like that. Well, we'll see. I'll put that on the agenda. You know what? I just don't want you guys to spend money on crap products, and there's not much I can do there. HMS Barham is the ship, 90 seconds ish. Roger, got you there. Okay, thank you so much for that, Justin. Flux again. Flux, you must have won the lottery here, girl. Lol, I'm just trying to buy one and customize it. Well, you do that and let us know. But you've once again started the merch question, I guess we'll call it, to merch or not to merch. All righty. What is coming up in the week? Tomorrow will be a case update with Taylor Shabusiness. We'll be talking about her case and some recent developments there. You may recall her is the one who chopped up her boyfriend, left his head and his junk in a bucket at the bottom of the stairs for his mother to find, and hid various body parts in her roommate's car and other places, and answered the door when the police came to see her covered in blood, and she promptly confessed everything. So we'll be talking about her case tomorrow, as well as the recent Nirvana case, where Nirvana was sued by the boy in the swimming pool on the cover of the Nevermind album for sexual exploitation and a bunch of other SV and SA related claims. We'll be talking about how that lawsuit came out. So that's on tomorrow. Wednesday will be the Aussie stream. It'll be the Aussie stream with Meme Copium, with Madcore Mofo, and with Law Patrol, formerly known as Law Patrol. We will be doing Chopper Reed and Ned Kelly, two badass Australian mofo outlaw heroes. That'll be a fun stream. Your Edmund Fitzgerald vid. Thank you so much, by the way, Jillian. Your Edmund Fitzgerald vid was the best I've ever seen, and I've watched a lot of them. I want a shirt fitted lady size. Men's shirts are too big. Okay, if we do March, we'll do definitely ladies fitted shirts. Thank you for liking the video, and thank you for the super chat, Jillian. Thursday will be our weekly OJ Simpson, our look at OJ Simpson, where we will be starting the defense opening statement. We did the horrifically boring and ill-prepared Chris Darden opening statement 2 weeks ago. Last week we did the slightly better but backwards organized Marcia Clark opening statement. Now we'll see how well or how poorly the defense starts out with their opening statements. We'll compare and contrast. Flux, I sold my house and I don't have anything else I like other than hats and watches. Well, I'm with you. I'm with you. The hats and the watches. Definitely can do both of those. So yeah, spend your money wisely. Buy lots of hats. Buy lots of watches. super chats. Yeah. Anyway, congrats on selling the house. Windfall, but you make a windfall and it costs you a windfall plus to buy the new one. Friday, we have yet to decide what's happening. I have to get with Fair and Balanced to see what's going on there. Because last Friday she had to take a rain check, so we had to postpone it. But this Friday, I don't know if we're going over on her channel to do our Unexplained, or if she's coming over to my channel to do Unexplained. If she comes over to my channel, then we'll just do that as my Friday stream. If I go to hers, it'll be on Saturday morning my time, so I'll do something on Friday night. So Friday is to be determined. Soy Mafia, thank you so much. Do survivors eat people when rations run out? Fact. They can. Donner Party, the soccer team that crashed in the Andes, has been known to happen. So thank you for that cheerful bit. Legal Vice's Maritime Whiskey when? Maritime Whiskey when? Maritime Whiskey. Well, it's kind of what we did today. We did whiskey in the morning and maritime at night, I guess. Cannibalism on the high sea. Big Canadian case with cannibalism? Okay. Let me just add that to the list. Let me add that to the list here. Cannibalism on the high seas, Canada. Cannibalism on the high seas, Canada. And while I've got my list open, here's some of the things that are on my list for future Maritime Mondays. This is just a few. It's not the whole list here. It's pretty long. There's a Penley lifeboat disaster. The fishing vessel Scandies Rose. This is the one I want to get Brick and Mortar on my channel to go over together. The Scandies Rose. There's also the Emily Rose, the Estonia, the Scandinavian Star, the wreck of the Peter Iredale, and abandoned ships. in ghost ships also, I want to talk about some of those. The ghost ships, not like Erie coming out of it, but ships that just are empty and nobody knows why. Nobody knows where they're just adrift on the ocean. The USS Forrestal. I used to have a model of the USS Forrestal. Sure, let's add that to the list. I used to have a model of the Forrestal, and we destroyed it by putting it in a canal. And my friend's father worked for the Fish and Game office, so they had waterproof, like underwater firecrackers. So we'd put it in this creek behind our house, and we'd throw fireworks, throw firecrackers at the USS Forrestal until we hit it and exploded it. That's just what we did when we were kids. That's really, really, really all I've got for today. The capture of the Pueblo would be pretty interesting, but that wasn't really a maritime disaster. That was just the North Koreans taking over a ship. How many seamen have been lost this year alone? I don't know. I really don't know. The SS politician, whiskey galore story. Is that a thing? SS politician. Okay. Oh. Interesting. Oh. Holy crap. All right. Oh yeah. All right. There we go. We're definitely going to be doing this one. We're definitely going to be doing the SS politician. We might have to bump the SS politician to the front of the line. Okay, that looked like a pretty cool story. I've never heard of that. That's pretty wild. All right. Wait, we don't need to do that. I've closed my list because I didn't think I was going to be looking at it again. I'm not going to be writing down any other thing. If there's any other thing that deal with sinkings, accidents, whatnot, send them my way, and I'll use them if I can, if I think they're interesting and whatnot. But email it to me at thelegalvices, and we could be good to go. Now, I saw earlier that Lauren said that you had emailed. Your email does not exist in my inbox. So, please check when you send things to me by email. I'm not saying that you did it right or wrong, but double check that it's at my email address is thelegalvices, THE legalvices @gmail.com. That's the way to get email to me. thelegalvices@gmail.com. Okay. All right. Justin just came in. All right. We got it. Never mind. Like literally right now. All right. Great. Thanks. That's where we are. That's what we're doing. And we're probably looking at maybe next Sunday morning, my time, late Saturday night, Eastern time would be maybe might have Good Logic on my channel. I was just on his, have him on mine, and I'll give him the grilling that he gave me. We'll have a good time with that as well. I'll let you all go early tonight. Here, class. How about we let class out early today? We've got some fun things to make sure. Let me just scroll up, make sure I've got all of the super chats and super stickers and things out of the way. I think I do. For all of you that are here today, as always, mods, thank you so much for doing your thing. It's a pleasure to have you here. You're all super amazing. Get Runkle on Cannibal Ship as he did that. If he's done it, I don't know if I want to do it. If he's already done it, we can talk. We'll look at it. Mods, thanks. All of you mods are super great. Legal Vices, can a mod still join if you have a members stream? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to look into that one. I honest to God don't know the answer to that. Oh, and that's one thing I've been thinking about, maybe also this weekend, maybe Sunday night my time, Sunday morning US time, doing a quick little members only stream just for the fun of it. So join up, but I'll have to find out the answer to that question for you, Alan. I just honestly don't know. Thank all of you for being here. I can't do this without an audience, and you're the audience. The Vice Squad rocks. It's the best chat on the entire internet, and I'm pleased to call you my own. Hit that like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button. Join the memberships. Sign up for the notifications. Do everything you need to go. Meme Copium has the answer. Mods can't join members if they aren't members. Okay, so they don't get a mods exception. Pressure. Yes, I just read that. Yeah, so if a mod is not a member, yeah, that's apparently no. That's it. Pressure. Join. But there we go. We have it. Can't wait to have Meme Copium. Oh, Madcore Mofo. There you go. Oh, well, now just a minute. Now we've got it's the thunder down under. We have Madcore Mofo saying yes and Meme Copium saying no. You guys got to sort it out. You're not helping me here. So, Alan, the answer is maybe. the answer is maybe. Madcore Mofo says yes. Meme Copian says he's right. I'm pretty sure we'll find out when I have my first member stream. They need to fight. All right. Yeah, we can have them fight it out on Wednesday. So again, Wednesday evening will be Madcore Mofo and Meme Copium, as well as the Law Patrol and I, talking about Uncle Chopper Reed, Uncle Chopper Reed, and Ned Kelly, the original Iron Man. So hopefully we'll have an answer by then. You guys are great. I appreciate having all of you here. You two legends with Meme Copium and Madcore Mofo. Thank you for showing me your support by being here. Wow, that was odd. Don't know what that was all about, but all right. Now, as long as YouTube, as long as YouTube is pausing me, we'll just let it go. All righty. Seems like there's more issues. You guys take care. Have a good night. See you on the way out. It doesn't look like I'm unfreezing. This sucks. I hate StreamYard. Have a great night. Love y'all. Take care. Enjoy your legal vices. Bye.